Bela Lugosi was one of horror cinema's biggest stars in the golden age of Hollywood, and during the first 2 decades of talkie movies, he starred in the same film twice. Most people know Lugosi from his Universal horror output, where he played Dracula in the first Universal Horror Monsters movie the company released. He also went on to play Igor in Son of Frankenstein and as the monster himself in Frankenstein Meets the Wolf Man. However, he also took on other horror roles. Most notably, he starred in films like White Zombie and Black Friday, as well as 3 Edgar Allan Poe adaptations with Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Black Cat, and The Raven. Those movies all remain beloved by classic horror fans to this day, with the 2 best being White Zombie and The Black Cat. What is most interesting about the latter movie is that 7 years after Lugosi took on a role in the Poe adaptation, he appeared in a second version of the film, but to lesser success. Bela Lugosi starred in The Black Cat in both 1934 and 1941. The horror icon starred in very different versions of the Edgar Allan Poe story. The Black Cat is an Edgar Allan Poe short story from 1843 about a man who suffers from alcoholism and begins abusing his pets. When one of his pet cats bites him, he cuts its eye out and then hangs it from a tree. Soon, his house burns down, and later, he finds another black cat resembling the former one. When his wife stops him from killing it, he kills her and then buries her in the wall of his basement. It is the cat who leads the police to find her body and dooms the man to his downfall. While this was the short story, neither of the Universal Studios adaptations had anything to do with the story other than it being an influence. In 1934, the studio made the first version of The Black Cat, starring both Lugosi and Boris Karloff, who played the original Frankenstein's monster. It was a rare chance for Lugosi to play the story's hero, even though he committed one of the most gruesome moments at the end. Lugosi stars as a soldier released from a World War I POW camp seeking revenge against the man responsible for putting him there, Karloff, when Lugosi's Dr. Vitus Werdegast is involved in a bus accident with 2 young American honeymooners. They all end up forced to take shelter in Karloff's Polzig's mansion. He soon learns that Polzig has been responsible for some reprehensible things and exacts horrific revenge against the man in this pre-Hays Code horror film where the hero does gruesomely horrible things to his enemy. While it was a horror masterpiece, Lugosi agreed to remake the same story 7 years later. However, unlike the 1934 version, the 1941 film was an actual horror comedy that bore no similarity to the first film. This time around, Lugosi starred alongside Basil Rathbone. This version has no similarity to the Poe story or the 1934 film. In this story, a wealthy woman is murdered, and her family shows up for the reading of the will. One of them is the killer. Lugosi had a much smaller role here, playing a mysterious servant, a considerable downgrade from the first movie. Why Bela Lugosi's original version of The Black Cat is the best? The first version has Bela Lugosi at his best. Bela Lugosi as Dr. Vitus Werdegast looking ominous in The Black Cat, original SR image by Yalin Chacon. It makes little sense why Universal Studios made a second The Black Cat movie after a successful first film. The second movie's biggest downfall is that it completely wastes the appearances of Bela Lugosi and Basil Rathbone. While they were the biggest horror names in the cast, they did very little and appeared even less. Instead, the comedy actors Hugh Herbert, Broderick Crawford, and Gwynn spend the entire movie either screaming in panic, looking confused, or sharing sinister glances. Comparatively, the first Black Cat from 1934 was a brilliant horror movie, matching well with most of the non-Universal monster horror movies of the 1930s. Karloff showed charisma as the mad scientist, leading a cult of Satanists, a nice change from his more somber Frankenstein's monster. It was nice to see Lugosi as a hero, but when he gained his revenge at the end, he didn't look like one, thanks to the Hays Code not being in effect yet. No one remembers the comedy movie, but the first Bela Lugosi version of The Black Cat is a minor masterpiece.